Welcome to another week of BLV NFL picks, straight up and versus the spread. I'm Mitch, and I'm going to give you a pick for each and every NFL game, week 11 of the 2024 NFL season. I pick against the spread. I pick straight up. And last week I promised I've been playing around a little bit too much this year, picking games for fun instead of for you guys to get some dubs. And last week we took it serious, and last week we had a great week. So let's continue that role into week 11. And for the rest of the season, I'm going to be picking only winners. In a bounce back spot, Big Al faded me like a dummy, Big Al. You faded me, Big Al. I can't believe it. I can't do it. We can't play with them. We can't win with them. We can't do it, Big Al. I'm like Tom Brady in a bounce back spot, bro. We're going to keep it going. Shout out to the members in the chat, including Big Al, Stephanie, Singh, and all the others. Gronk spiked the like button. Let's get to our standings, our picks, and then we'll get to Thursday night football. So Gronk spike the like button and subscribe, guys. We're back for another Wednesday night picks. Let's go, man. Okay. So our overall record straight up is 93-58. We went 10-4 both straight up and versus the spread. I am actually elated that our spread picks came through last week at 10-4, as it was, I think, a very difficult week against the spread. As Big Al said, he did go 10-4 straight up, just as I did, but he went 6-8 ATS, and that was because a lot of underdogs covered. There were a lot of, games last week where a team won, but then another team covered. So we actually were able to find that fine line more often than not and be on the right side of the cover last week. 10 out of 14 games. Now our spread record is at 78-71-3. Our best bets, we did go 4-1 on our best bets last week. And if Jake Moody hits 2 of 3 field goals, we would have been 5-0 last week. So yeah, best bets. Great last week. Hopefully we can continue that. The best bets will be out tomorrow, guys. And for members, of course, it will be out tonight. So if you are a YouTube member, you get those best bets early, basically half a day early ahead of everybody else so that you can bet on those games. And then for everybody else, the public, it will be out Thursday morning. So that's the record as we stand after 10 weeks. It's been not our best season by a long shot, but I feel like I'm starting to get a really good feel for this league, so let's just keep it going. Let's get started with the first game, Thursday Night Football. Gronk spike the like button, guys. That's how more people find this video and find these picks. Thursday Night Football. I have a very definitive stance on this Thursday Night Football game, and I think it will be featured in my best bets. This was the latest pick that I'm going to add to my best bets. I never really consider Thursday Night Football until I really dive into who I'm going to pick on this show, because I don't usually like giving out Thursday Night Football picks for a variety of reasons. The games are often sloppy. They're poorly officiated. There's a lot of injuries. You don't know how players are rested, the travel, the coaching. Even to a certain degree, I just don't like if I lose on Thursday night, it doesn't reflect on me for the rest of the week. I could go 4-1, but if I picked a loser on Thursday night, you guys are more likely to fade me for the rest of the week. So it doesn't even help me really in that sense either. So Thursday Night Football, we're going to talk about later in Best Bets on that show why I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles, though, quite a bit in this spot. I think they're at home. The Eagles, I think, are generally underrated. I think that they are a very good team, but I don't think they're seen as a very good team in the NFC or the NFL. And I think the Commanders are a bit of a phony paper tiger. I think that they are overrated. And I'm going to get Commies fans in my chat and in my comments hating on me once again, but it's okay. I understand it. I just don't think the Commanders are at the level of the Eagles, especially when you factor in a variety of different reasons. First of all, you look at the good teams the Commanders have actually played, and they've lost those games. I mean, they have really not played anybody you would consider to be elite or at the level of the Eagles. You factor in this is a rookie coaching staff on a short week. This is a rookie quarterback on a short week. This is in Philadelphia, not in Washington. They lost to Pittsburgh last week. I think there are similarities between what the Eagles can do to the Commanders on defense and what the Steelers were able to do to Jaden Daniels, who basically had a 50% completion percentage. I think he was like 17 for 34 and struggled to put up a lot of yards in that game. And Washington has seen consistent issues with red zone offense, with run defense. There's a lot of factors here for the Eagles. So Eagles, Nick Sirianni, this staff is experienced. They've got Kellen Moore on the staff. They've got Vic Fangio on the staff, Nick Sirianni on the staff. How many Thursday night games have we already seen the Eagles in over the last 3 years? The Eagles played a Thursday night game earlier in the year, and I think they lost that game, unless that was a Monday night game. I can't really remember. But regardless, we've seen Sirianni's Eagles in Thursday night games quite often, so he knows how to handle this. I think a first-time coaching staff here, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, they're not first-time coaches, but this is the first time this staff has been together. And I do think that does have an impact when we've even looked at some of the games this year on Thursday night and how rookie staffs together have been able to operate. I do think one of the biggest edges the Commanders have had on their opponents is actually their coaching. And I think when you limit the preparation time for an opponent, it takes away the coaching advantage and it leans more into the talent advantage. And I think the Eagles are the significantly more talented roster. I think one of the weaknesses of the Commanders is run defense. I believe they rank 31st in yards per attempt allowed. They're going to be taking on Saquon Barkley, arguably the best running back in football right now. They're getting Jordan Mailata back on the offensive line, the Eagles, this week, I do believe, and they have activated him off IR. I think he will play, and I think that is going to allow them to control the game from the start, get a lead, and force the Commanders into a pretty awkward position, especially defensively, where a majority of the season they've been kind of playing from ahead, and they've been able to attack offenses by a variety of blitz packages and some dynamic looks through Dan Quinn's scheme. But what happens if they're on their heels and they're behind the 8-ball? We've seen Jalen Hurts play Dan Quinn's defenses in Dallas. We've seen Sirianni and these teams play Dan Quinn before. They have never really had an answer for this Eagles offense. That being Dallas, Dallas's defense in the past couple of years. Dallas has beaten the Eagles before in those matchups, right? But a majority of them were shootouts. So I don't really get the sense that Dan Quinn is going to be the guy to slow down Jalen Hurts. I don't think he has the corners to defend A.J. Brown, and I do think Devontae Smith will play. The Eagles are pretty much healthy, too. I mean, they really have no injuries that are concerning to me on either side of the ball. The Commanders are missing their kicker. The Commanders have 3 of their tackles that are questionable for this game on offense. And I just see these two teams I see the Commanders as a wild card team that I don't really see going, very far. I think they're starting to regress offensively. I think they're starting to look a little bit more like a team that's young, fun, but just not on the level of the Eagles. So, and I think you have to factor in the Eagles' defense is legit. I think they can be able to contain. Fangio's a smart coordinator. I think guy like Nolan Smith, who's very quick, very fast, that's one of his best skills. He's a guy that could run down Jaden Daniels, similar to what we saw with Montez Sweat with the Bears. And I think this Eagles defense is right up there. I don't think enough people give them credit what they've done with Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, the way that Zach Bond is playing. I think this defense at home is going to come out firing, and I think the offense is just going to ball control its way down the field. And every single time they get in a short yardage, they're going to be able to convert because they've got Saquon and they've got Jalen Hurts. And I think they'll be able to hit that deep ball just as the Steelers were able to hit that deep ball against this Commanders team because they have A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. His best skill throwing the ball is down the field. So I just really like this matchup for the Eagles. I don't think the Commanders match up that well with the Eagles. I think their best shot would be to win a shootout, but I think that the Commanders' offense is probably going to get halted in the red zone, and I just don't see it. I just don't see it against this Eagles team. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident the Eagles should come out on top here. I think they'll win. I think they'll cover. I'm not going to say it will be a blowout, but I think they'll win by about 7 points. I think they'll win by about 7 points. Something like 27-20, something to that degree. Maybe up to 10 points, like a 30-20 or something like that. But I think the Eagles, they're trending up, and to me, the Commanders are trending down. You also have to factor in just the history of Cliff Kingsbury as a coach and a coordinator. He's typically a guy, as we've talked about. He starts the season really, really hot with his new quarterback and his new scheme. Teams start to get film on it. They find out ways to attack it, and they figure out how to be able to stop it. So that's also something that's playing in the back of my mind too. But yeah, that's my pick for the Thursday night game. I think it should be very fun. I will be live for Thursday Night Football. I hope you join me for that. Guys, if you're new, man, and you're not usually on live streams, just give it a look. Give it a check out. See if you vibe with the chat. It's a lot of fun typically on these primetime games when we get together on these streams. I know that Big Al's always there. Caesar's always there. So they'll say hello to you. They'll make you feel at home. And you could join me and see if you just have fun with the stream. So yeah, guys, that's my Thursday night pick. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't already. It looks like we've got close to 40 people now filtering into the chat. So make sure to get those likes up so that more people can find this video. Let's go to Sunday. Actually, I want to try something a little bit different before we get to Sunday. I want to try something a little bit different with OUTLIER here. I think we can find some cool ways to put OUTLIER into this video. Instead of just showing the trends and where people are betting, I kind of want to throw in some prop type things to the video, and we're just going to kind of play it. I have not looked at any of these insights already, but I've gotten rid of the prop video just based on the viewership, and it didn't feel like a majority of the audience was vibing with it. So we're going to throw this in there to help the people that do like prop picks and things like that. And maybe there will also be trends that OUTLIER can give us as well that could help us bet these games. So let's just take a look at the Commanders and the Eagles for Thursday Night Football. And I'll probably spotlight this throughout the video. I won't do every single game, but a few of the interesting games that I think are pretty interesting. So we've got here, Bobby Wagner has failed to exceed 8.5 tackles and assists in 5 of his last 6 games. That's a pretty interesting, that's minus 125. That's a pretty interesting stat right there. And that is hit on the last 4 games right there. The over, this one's a good one. If you're betting on the total, the over has hit for the Eagles in 7 of the last 9 Eagles home games. The over is set at 48.5. Saquon has rushed for over 79.5 in 7 of his last 9 games. I would bet the over there, even at minus 137 at Prize Picks, it looks like. What else we got here that's interesting? Jalen Hurts has exceeded 21.45 fantasy score. This is at Underdog Fantasy. Shout out to Underdog. In 9 of the last 11 games at home. That's minus 120. Anything else interesting? Brian Robinson returns for this game. If you want to bet on Brian Robinson, he has exceeded 55.5 rushing receiving yards in 5 of his last 6 road games. That's minus 110. Pretty good price. And Saquon has exceeded 13.5 receiving yards in 6 of his last 7 home games. All right. Those are some spreads or some props to take a look at right there on OUTLIER, guys. And if you do want to sign up to OUTLIER, the link is also in the description, I believe. So check that out. Okay, let's get to game number 2. Back to Sunday. Sunday, fun day. The Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Packers began the week at minus 6.5. And honestly, I would have bet the Packers at minus 6.5. Now they're minus 5.5. A shocking movement, in my opinion, on the spread, because I just think I've been fading the Bears kind of all season, to be honest with you. I think the Bears are not a good football team. I would price them as a bottom 5 team in the NFL right now, according to my power rankings. I think Caleb Williams is a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, and I think the Bears, as currently constituted, we'll see if their offensive line gets healthier because they've been missing pieces, but I think they're currently performing like the worst offensive line in football, or arguably the second or third worst in the NFL. So you combine all those elements. They fired their offensive coordinator for a reason, Shane Waldron. He's absolute booty cheek. They've replaced him. Now, maybe that will be an upgrade, which is perhaps why this line has moved, because people see an upgrade in the coach and some sort of coach bonus or coach bounce back or something like that, right? But you factor in Caleb sucks. The O-line sucks. The defense is injured. That Jaquan Brisker is injured. They lost Andrew Billings for the year, which has since really hurt their defensive line and run defense. Montez Sweat is being held out of practice right now, although he'll probably play. Meanwhile, the Packers are a team that haven't exactly been playing to their peak levels. They haven't been playing to as high as you would have expected or as good as you would have expected, but they're coming out of a bye week. They have Matt LaFleur, who in my opinion is one of the best coaches in the league. So he has a whole week to kind of fix whatever issues are going on with the offense specifically and Jordan Love. Love gets another week to rest up because he's been banged up and injured. Christian Watson and these receivers get another week to rest up. Josh Jacobs faces a run defense that recently has been awful. Like, for the Patriots to be able to run on you, you have to be really bad against the run. So that's also a factor to me. I think Josh Jacobs has a massive game. The Packers are one of the 10 best rushing teams in the NFL. The Packers offensive line is healthy. The Packers defense is healthy coming out of the bye week. And I also think the Packers, one of their low-key best points of their team this year has been their blitzing. I think that they will get after Caleb, and I think they will take him down a multitude of times. I would take a look back at the Texans game as evidence of the Packers being able to blitz really well. Caleb has been terrible against the blitz this year, and there's just bad vibes going on with Chicago in general. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen just looks kind of like out of it. Roma Dunze is just completely overrated. Like, there's so many elements of this team I just don't like about the Bears. I think their defense isn't quite at that level that they were a few weeks ago because of the injuries, and their offense is just really, really bad. I mean, they haven't scored a touchdown in weeks. Weeks! Guys, the Patriots, demolished them. Are we expecting them to keep it close against a team that they never beat, the Green Bay Packers? I don't think Matt LaFleur has lost to the Bears in his entire career. So, I'm taking the Packers -5.5. This will also be a best bet as a spoiler. I'm taking the Packers to win, the Packers to cover. I think they come out of the bye week playing better football, and keep in mind, they're gearing up for a big matchup against the Niners at home the week after. So it's a big game for them against San Francisco. So they want to be playing good football coming out of the bye week. So Packers -5.5, Packers to win, Packers to cover. The Bears suck. They just suck. Okay, we're going to skip the trends on this one. Next up, we've got the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. Saints are favored by 1. I like the Browns here. So first of all, the Browns are, and Big Al says the Packers are -5 on his Sports Alert app. So there you go. That might even be a better number for you. But I like the Browns. The Browns are healthy. The Browns are coming off a bye week. The Browns actually have 0 injuries on offense. Their entire offensive line is healthy. Nick Chubb is going to have another week to prepare his body after the bye week to get ready for a run-heavy script against a Saints defense that can't stop the run. They have all their receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, all there. Jameis has another week to get comfortable with Stefanski, the script of what they've probably been working on. And then defensively, I still think the Browns, I would rate the Browns as a top 10 defense still, regardless of JOK going down and then also Zadarius Smith being traded. I still think the Browns are a top 10 defense, especially when it comes to their secondary. And where I really love this matchup for the Browns, I don't think a lot of people have been talking about this. The Browns play a lot of man coverage, and the Saints have no receivers. So I don't think the Saints will be able to separate at all in this game. They don't have Chris Olave. They don't have Rashid Shaheed. I just don't see how Marquez Valdez-Scantling is separating from, in my opinion, the best man-to-man corner in football, Denzel Ward. I just don't see how that happens. So, and then on top of that, Derek Carr under pressure is a pumpkin. I think he will get pressured by Myles Garrett. The Saints have a multitude of injuries on both sides of the football. I just don't get this line. This is one of the most puzzling lines of the week. Considering I would rate the Browns as like the 20th best team in the league or somewhere around that range, 21st, somewhere around there. I would rate the Saints around 26, 27, somewhere around that range as well. So, yeah, they beat the Falcons, but that was a divisional game at home with the coach, being fired, a coach kind of boost, a new coach boost type thing. They were completely outplayed. Younghoe Koo missed 3 field goals like Jake Moody. The Saints got outgained by like 200 yards. Like, the Falcons should have won that game 100%. I mean, the Falcons win that game more often than not. It probably like 8 out of 10 times. So I think the Saints are kind of like a fool's gold right now because people think they're back because they got a new coach. I don't see it. He can clog the toilet again this week, and I just think it's going to come up stinky on the field. So I'm going to go Browns. I just think they're more talented. They're healthier. They're better. Browns all the way around. I think unless Jameis just completely messes this game up. But that this is also a Jameis revenge spot. He was chosen as the chosen one to take over for Drew Brees. He's going to come out firing with a big-time pregame speech talking about his team and what they got to do to win. So fire up some Jameis Winston this week, baby. Fire up some Jameis Winston. Big Al says he has the Browns at 24 in his power rankings. I moved them up because many teams moved down. Big Al says the Browns are going to win 23-16. Win and cover as the visiting underdog. Mr. Fulton is in the chat. Just shout out to Mr. Fulton. He says he's having a rough day today. His principal has passed away. So everybody, prayers up for Mr. Fulton. Appreciate you, Mr. Fulton. One of the guys that always tunes into the live streams, always gives his love out there. So Mr. Fulton, thank you, man. Hopefully, sorry for your loss. Hopefully you're all right, bro. Let's keep it rolling. For the next matchup, we're going to save the outlier for the marquee matchups. These aren't really marquee matchups. Gronk, spike the like button, guys. Let's go. Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans. Vikings are favored by 6. This one was one I was kind of struggling with. I'm not going to lie. This will not be a best bet. I like the Vikings. I think if you can find a 5.5, I think that might be definitely more playable than a 6. I think 6 is sometimes sort of tricky. But I'm going to go Vikings to win, Vikings to cover. The Titans have been terrible against the spread this year. I think they might have 1 cover or 2 covers the entire season. So they're a terrible spread team. And when I look at just recent results, Tennessee, it's kind of weird that I thought they played really well against the Patriots. And then they came back against the Chargers, and I thought they kind of hung in the first half. And then they had a dreadful second half. They're dealing with some injuries to their secondary defensively. Will Levis, I think, is a downgrade for their offense. I think Mason Rudolph has been the better quarterback this year for their offense. And I think we've seen that in recent weeks. Mason Rudolph against the Lions and the Patriots puts up 400 yards. Will Levis against a better defense than the Chargers, still not very good, right? Pretty underwhelming. He did have a couple big throws down the field to Calvin Ridley, but I do think that's a downgrade just in terms of the consistency and success rate of the offense. I think Mason Rudolph is better for just getting the ball out and keeping them on schedule, and they're a run-first team. They throw a lot of screens, things like that. Will Levis is more of a chuck and pray or a big-time explosive guy that also takes a ton of sacks. I mean, every week Will Levis plays, they take like 8 sacks a game. Like, it's ridiculous. That being said, I think I look at last week, and we talked about this on the Week 10 reaction. The Vikings, they outgained the Jags by a bunch. I mean, it was incredible. Their time of possession, they had 40 minutes plus of time of possession compared to like 19 minutes of possession. And then the Vikings had 28 first downs, which was the most of any team in the NFL. Jacksonville like barely moved the ball. And that game looks a lot closer than it should have been because Sam Darnold turned it over a couple times in the red zone. That being said, I am a little nervous about Sam Darnold. That's the reason I wouldn't bet on the Vikings necessarily, because I think that Sam Darnold is just, he's turning it over. He's playing erratic. His red zone play has not been efficient. He's been making a lot of mistakes. The O-line, since losing Christian Darrisaw, has not been the same. And I think more sacks and things are coming. And Tennessee is a defense that, especially at home, pretty solid. Got a good front. They can stop the run, and they can force that quarterback and Sam Darnold to beat them. That being said, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson are really skilled, really talented. I do think they can make plays against a underwhelming Titans cornerback group and an underwhelming Titans secondary. So I would lean Vikings. I mostly think because Flores and this defense have been back on track lately. They've been dominant. I think they'll give this Titans O-line a lot of issues. I think they'll also stop Tony Pollard in the Titan running game. Maybe Ridley makes some plays here, but I just don't see it being consistent. So I'm going to lean towards Vikings to win, Vikings to cover, but I'm not comfortable about the cover whatsoever. So I would stay away from betting this. That's pretty much my insight on the game. This is not one I'm really going to be paying too close attention to. As long as the Vikings win, I feel like that's probably the expected result here. I would also maybe, again, like even a teaser I feel a little uncomfortable with. This could be an upset, potentially. I just feel a little bit weird about betting on Darnold right now. I just feel like he's just not bettable right now. I think I need to see a bounce back from Sam Darnold before I bet him again. Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jags at the Detroit Lions. Detroit is favored by, depending on where you look, 13 to 14 points. Obviously, that's a big range, though. That's because 14 is a full 2 touchdowns and a full 2 extra points. Like 13.5 is a little bit different. Like this is a huge spread regardless, right? But I think I lean towards Detroit. I don't love Detroit. I think there will be some people that at 13, they might bet Detroit. I'm going to stay away from this one. It's just a ginormous spread. And Jacksonville, for some reason, did stay in the game against the Vikings. And like I said, they should have been blown out, but they weren't. I like the Lions just because I think they'll be able to throw the ball in this game. They'll create explosive plays to Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. The one area where I think that Jacksonville can be a bit more competitive than most other teams, I think their run defense will be solid, but Detroit pretty much runs on everybody. And I would say that Jacksonville, like St. Brown could have a massive game because they're terrible against slot receivers. And also when I look at it, this is a Lions team coming off a pretty lackluster Sunday Night Football performance. There might be incentive for them to bounce back here, incentive for them to run up the score, incentive for them to play perfect football, not make mistakes. Like Jared Goff had 5 picks. Maybe Jared Goff is in for a bounce back game, at least through the first 3 quarters, and then they can take it easy, right? But Jacksonville offensively with Mac Jones, they just have no legitimacy of an explosive passing game. And I think the way Detroit plays defense, they'll condense the windows. They'll play tight man coverage. They'll force a guy like Mac with a pretty underwhelming arm to have to throw the ball down the field and face the blitz consistently. And I don't see Jacksonville running the ball at all. So I could see this game getting out of hand early, and then perhaps Jacksonville makes some plays later in the game, which makes it a little bit more enticing towards the spread. But I would expect like a 31-13 or something like that. Like that, this should be a blowout in every way, shape, or form. If Trevor Lawrence were playing in this game, I would maybe consider Jacksonville, but because I think that he's one of those quarterbacks that sometimes he's just on a heater and he can hit those tight window throws and big explosives that would keep Jacksonville in this game. But I don't see it with Mac Jones. So I'm going to go Detroit to win, Detroit to cover, but obviously not a bet, just given this is a massive spread. And out of principle, I'm not going to lay 14 points in the NFL. This is not the 2007 Patriots, as good as the Lions are. Big Al says Detroit wins and covers. This is my lock of the week, 8-2, and my locks of the week. Just curious, Big Al, are your locks of the week straight up? Also, Big Al says 10-4 straight up, 6-8 ATS. A lot of underdogs covering last week. Oh, he's talking about his picks from last week. Miss Jennifer is in the chat. She says, not as good as the week before, which I won the week. That is 3 weeks of wins for me, so woohoo! Congratulations, Miss Jennifer, on your pick'ems so far this year. Good job. Shout out to Miss Jennifer, our Seahawk fan, in the chat. Let's get to the next game, which is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Miami is favored by 7.5 points. And Big Al says that his lock of the week is straight up. He's taking the Lions. All right. Now, let's go through this game. This one is a weird one, I think, because I think most people would say that Miami is not a team that you really want to be laying more than a touchdown with. They have just not proven themselves to be that level of team. I think Miami should be power rated somewhere around the 15th, 14th maybe, to like 20th best team in the league. And as bad as you think the Raiders are, which I currently have them as literally the worst team in football, but the Raiders have covered quite a few games this year, and I have the Raiders as the worst team in the league, like on average, not accounting for like Cooper Rush and Mac Jones and that sort of thing. So like on average, I think the Raiders are probably the worst team in the league because they have Antonio Pierce, who writes in a notebook. We don't know what he's writing about. And then we also got Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. And this week it happens to be Gardner Minshew. I don't know which one, if either one matters. But the Raiders are coming out of a bye week, and the Dolphins are on a short week. Now the Raiders have to travel to the East, and Miami is at home in the heat. And that could be an advantage, but this team also plays in Vegas. So I don't necessarily know if their bodies will not be ready for the heat. That being said, the Raiders, I think, should be healthier than previously. They are probably going to try to run the ball in this game, which I don't necessarily think is going to be a good idea. I do think, though, the Raiders could find some success through the quick passing game to guys like Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, and I wouldn't be shocked by that. But if they try to run the ball too much, I think that's going to be a bit puzzling. But the area where I just don't know if I trust Miami, I don't think their offense is nearly as good as they've been in years past under Mike McDaniel. Their O-line is healthy, and yet they're just inconsistent. Tua is just not playing that well, and Tyreek looks hurt. Waddle is soft. Like, Jonnu Smith is more involved than Jalen Waddle. Like, I just don't know if I can lay 7.5, 8 points with this Miami offense right now. They feel like a team that, yeah, they beat the Rams and it was on the road and the Rams defense is playing well, but the Raiders have a bit of a feisty defense. The Raiders are one of those teams that they kick field goals, they hang in games, they try to like backdoor cover all the time, and usually that allows them to cover spreads. Like the Rams game and the Chiefs game, they somehow covered those games despite never having a chance to win the game. So I'll take the Raiders with the 7.5, but I'll take Miami to win. Miami is the way more talented, way better coached football team. But when you look at their track record, regardless of quarterback, you don't really look at it and you're really impressed. I think their most impressive game of the year was probably them losing to the Bills in Buffalo. That was probably their most impressive game. Otherwise, like, they barely beat Jacksonville at home. They lost to the Cardinals at home. So even Tua at home this year has been pretty poor. Like, their record is 0-2 with Tua at home, I think. They played Buffalo, 1-2, right? They beat Jacksonville, I think, at home by 3. They got killed by Buffalo, and they lost to Arizona in a game that could have went either way. And then they beat the Rams on the road, where the Rams just played awful, in my opinion. But we picked Miami to win that game as well. So we've had a pretty good handle on Miami. They're just a weird team. I think Calais Campbell's been playing unbelievable. Zach Sealer's been playing unbelievable. Ramsey is hitting people. The defense is playing pretty solid. I think maybe about above expectation considering they don't really have an edge rush right now. But the offense is just the element where I'm just not certain what we're going to get. And this Raiders team, the more consistent element of their team has been their defense. So I think their defense keeps them in the game long enough for them to cover somehow. So I'll take Miami to win, Raiders to cover. Not a confident play in my opinion. Big Al's got the Dolphins to win 24-19. Miami wins. Vegas will backdoor cover. All right. Big Al's on the same page here. Where are we? That was our last one. All right. Guys, Gronk spike the like button. Let's keep it going. Subscribe if you're new and you enjoy what you're hearing. All right. The Los Angeles Rams. And in my opinion, this is a marquee game because it's the Patriots. So we're going to pull up the outlier once we get through my thoughts on this game. The Rams are laying 4.5 in New England. They're going from the west to the east on a short week. Drake May, the best quarterback out of structure in the NFL according to analytics, will be taking on a Hall of Fame, in my opinion, Hall of Fame quarterback, Matthew Stafford, probably one of his idols. So this will be fun from that standpoint. The Rams are looking to keep themselves in the playoff picture, and the Patriots are just trying to keep the good vibes going. I like the Rams to win, and I like the Rams to cover. I think this is not a bad spot for the Patriots because the Rams are on a short week and the travel and the time and all that sort of stuff. But I think this is a bad matchup for the Patriots. And I also think that the Rams are just way better from a coaching perspective. As much as I make fun of the Rams and Mick Cabot and him probably, spending a little bit too much time in Mexico, I do think that the Rams will win this game. And I do think they should win fairly comfortably. I just still don't believe in my Patriots team outside of the quarterback. And he's a rookie, and he's been making a mistake or two in every game, kind of like Stafford. But Drake May is going to probably get strip sacked in this game because the Rams' defensive line is probably the most underrated pass rush in the NFL, and the Patriots' O-line is literally the worst, least efficient pass blocking unit in the entire league, according to ESPN. They were graded a 3 out of 100 in their pass blocking efficiency, which I didn't even know was a real stat. I didn't even know that was a real thing. So as good as Drake May is, which we keep going on soliloquies about Drake May, we're not going to be able to run the ball because I just don't see it. The Rams aren't a great run defense, but the Patriots just don't have a good run offense, okay? They stink, okay? And when you talk about the Rams defense, I think, had issues with Miami. And one of the reasons we played Miami or liked Miami in that game was because Miami's offense is very fast. And Miami's offense is very tricky. And the Patriots are the opposite. The Patriots offense is not tricky and it's not fast. It's slow as shit. And the Rams are a slow-ass defense. That's why they had issues with Miami. They can't run. And they're going to have issues with any team that can get vertical and run by you. And the Patriots can't do that. They're so slow. They've got nothing on their offense. Unless Drake plays like 07 Tom Brady, I don't know how we win this game. On the other side of things, it's McVay against a defense that can't stop the run consistently. I think that Kyron Williams is going to be able to run the ball. And I think that will set everything else up for the Rams. I think that will allow them to not be in awkward situations. I think Stafford will be comfortable because the Patriots' D-line is not great. I know they had 9 sacks against Caleb and the Bears, but Caleb is terrible. He holds on the ball way too long, and Stafford is going to get the ball out on time. And Kupp and Nakua are just going to feast on 6-yard routes the entire game. And we're going to play soft zone. And we're just going to get shredded. So I think this game's going to go very poorly for the Patriots. I would lay the points with the Rams. I don't like this game at all. I have a bad feeling about this game. I hope Drake still plays well, but I think our defense is going to come back down to earth. At least Kyle Duggar might play for the Patriots. That at least helps. He hasn't played in 3 weeks. But unless the Patriots have somehow turned the corner on defense, I don't think they have. I think they just played the Bears, to be honest, because they got dominated by the Titans. Keep in mind, they let Tony Pollard run the ball straight down their throat for an entire overtime, and they did not stop it. So we're not going to stop it. I think the Rams win like 27-17. I think Big Al's accurate. 26-17. I don't think the Rams are a dominant enough team to win by like 14 plus, but I think they'll win by somewhere around 7 to 10 points. That would be my guess. So I'll lay it with the Rams, and I'll take LA to beat the Patriots. Now, that being said, let's go over some of the insights for this game and see maybe if Outlier proves me wrong on anything at all. All right, let's go. Hold on. Where was I going to go? There it is. Okay, so we're on the Rams and Patriots. As you guys can see, we can filter each and every game. We can go to all games. We can also just do an individual game. So we're going Rams and Patriots here. Stafford, get that out of here. Stafford has exceeded 244.5 pass yards in 4 of his last 5 games. The odds are -110 at Bet365 for a bounce-back Stafford game. Not a terrible idea. I don't necessarily love that one this week because I do think the Rams are going to run the ball. I'd probably more so lean into Kyren Williams props. The Patriots are 1-8 in their last 9 games at home. There you go. That helps us on our bet. The over has hit in 8 of the Rams' last 12 games on the road. That's pretty interesting. Now, this has actually hit only 2 out of the last 5. So that's something to consider. So they've been a bit more of an under team this year, but that also has to do with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua being injured. So keep that in mind. Kayshon Boutte has exceeded 18.5 longest reception in 5 of his last 6 games. I actually like this one because, like we said, the Rams are a very bad team against deep passes. I do think Drake will complete a big pass to Kayshon Boutte at some point in this game. He has been their deep threat most consistently. So I would look at that one. That one's interesting. The Patriots are 1-7-1 against the spread in their last 9 games at home. There you go. That's a good trend for us right there. Rams to cover. Patriots are 1-7-1. That's 11%. That's donkey doo-doo, bro. What is that? Stevenson has exceeded 24.5 rush receiving yards in 7 straight games. I don't know what that is. That's -4,000. I don't even know why that's a thing. Why are we even putting that on here? Stafford has exceeded an interception in 6 straight games. That's also an interesting play there because Stafford has been throwing the ball to the other team pretty frequently. Anything on Kyren Williams? Failed to exceed longest rush in 7 of his last 9 games. Anything on him? I don't really see. Okay, here we go. Kyren has exceeded 84.5 rushing yards in 5 of his last 6 games against bottom 10 defenses. This is -115. I would bet this one. Over 84.5 rushing yards. Rushing yards. I'd bet that. Patriots aren't going to stop the Rams on the ground. So bet that one. All right, let's get to the next game, homies. Let me know your thoughts on the Patriots and the Rams. Next up, we've got the Ravens at the Steelers. Ravens are laying 3 in Pittsburgh. This is another marquee game we'll take a look at Outlier for. So this is a weird one. So all the trends indicate to bet on the Steelers. And everything kind of tells us to bet on the Steelers. The Steelers are great as an underdog. Mike Tomlin is great as an underdog. The Steelers at home are great as an underdog. The Ravens-Steelers rivalry, whoever is the underdog you bet on, essentially. Like, that's the trend, right? Like, that's what happens. It doesn't even matter who's on the team, like who's playing quarterback, who the defense is, if it's Troy Polamalu, if it's Ray Lewis, if it's Joe Flacco, if it's Lamar, if it's Big Ben, if it's AB, if it's Steve Smith, if it's Anquan Bolden. It really doesn't matter who's playing. Harbaugh, Tomlin, Steelers, Ravens, underdog. That being said, I am taking the Ravens -3 in this video. I will not be betting it because I feel like I just would feel stupid either way if I bet this game. And let me explain. I will feel stupid if I fade the Steelers as an underdog at home if I lose. At the same time, I'll feel like an idiot if I bet on the Steelers to beat the Ravens, essentially, in this game because the Ravens are the better team with the far better quarterback, and they have an awesome offense. And I just don't want to mess with the Ravens either. So me betting on this game is not going to take place. It's not going to happen. Okay, that being said, I'll take the Ravens. And the reason I like the Ravens here is I think Derrick Henry and the Ravens are going to be able to run the ball. I think the Steelers are a little bit overrated against the run. And we've seen teams run the ball on them, specifically the Giants. I think the Ravens will be able to run the ball. I think that's going to allow them to take pressure off Lamar Jackson passing the football. And maybe we get a little Deontay Johnson revenge game. I do think, Zay Flowers will have a bounce back. I actually think you look at the Ravens receivers and the type of receivers they are, and you think about, especially Zay, Joey Porter's a big, long, physical corner. I don't like how he matches up with the quickness and the separation skills of Zay and Deontay and Rashad Bateman. I don't think those are great matchups. And I do think the Ravens will be able to run the ball to keep that pressure on their toes for TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who I don't think's playing, and Preston Smith and Cam Hayward. So that run game, I think, will keep them out of bad situations. Secondly, I think the Steelers will want to run the ball. The Ravens are good stopping the run. So I think the Ravens will be able to stop the run and put Russ in a lot of traditional drop back passes. Now, if I were Arthur Smith, I would look to play action on early downs frequently. But I think we have a sense of the Ravens defense being worse than it is because we just remember them playing the Bengals. And I just don't think there are many quarterbacks that can just drop back and throw it like Joe Burrow. And even like Baker Mayfield. Mayfield's playing top 10 level. Burrow's playing top 5 level. They've faced some really good passing offenses this year. And yeah, they've given up a lot of yards. But I just don't think the Steelers are that type of offense. I think they need to run the ball. I think they need to chuck and pray and throw the ball deep. And I just don't think that's going to be consistent against the Ravens. So that's the way I go, is I lean towards the Ravens. Obviously, this game could go either way. This is a Steeler-Raven game in Pittsburgh. Who knows what's going to happen? There could be a punt block. There could be multiple missed field goals. There could be a kick return. There could be a literal fight on the field. Any of those things could happen. So I don't necessarily want to bet this one. But I like the Ravens. I just think they're the better team. They got the better quarterback. They're hot. Their offense is better. And I think the Steelers' offense is just a little too inconsistent, in my opinion. If you just compare their EPA to their success rate, those two things don't match up. They don't make sense, okay? Let's take a look at what OUTLIER believes this game will be this week, because maybe they'll have a better idea than me. All right. Patrick Queen, who, by the way, played really good football last week, has failed to exceed 8.5 tackles and assists in 15 of his last 17 games. That's minus 115, under 8.5. The Ravens are 8-2 in their last 10 road games. Okay, so Ravens money line is an interesting play. The 3 is an interesting spread for sure. I think 3.5, you would have to lean towards Pittsburgh. But at 3, I would just take the team you think is going to win, which I think is going to be the Ravens. But who knows? In this game, it could be 23-21. Who knows? It could be. The Ravens are 6-2, 75% against the spread in their last 8 road games. Russell Wilson has failed to exceed half an interception 8 straight games at home. That's minus 115. What else? Derrick Henry has failed to exceed 19.5 rushing attempts in 11 of his last 12 road games. He averages 14. So some of that dates back to Tennessee. The under is hit in 6 of the Steelers' last 9 games versus bottom 10 scoring defenses. Zay Flowers has exceeded half a rushing yard in 4 of his last 5 road games. Lamar has exceeded 14. Okay, this is an interesting one. Lamar has exceeded 42.5 rushing yards in 7 straight games on the road. He averages 72 yards per game. Now, that being said, he doesn't run the ball well typically against the Steelers. So keep that in mind, but that is an interesting trend. Also, he has exceeded 282 total yards in 5 of his last 6 games on the road, averaging 338.7. I will say, I think he'll throw the ball fairly well in this game, but I don't expect him to run the ball that well. Russell Wilson has exceeded 224.5 passing yards in 4 of his last 5 home games. Okay, interesting. Those are some trends from Outlier right there and some insight into the game. Singh is in the chat letting us know who he's picking in these games. Singh's got the Dolphins 23-10. He's got the Pats to beat the Rams 20-13. The Steelers to beat the Ravens. A couple upsets from Singh, the one and only. Stephanie in the chat's got the Ravens 30-27. What's up, Stephanie? Thanks for joining the chat. Again, guys, Gronk spiked the like button. We've got almost 100 people in the chat. We haven't even reached half that amount of likes. Gronk spiked the like button. Let's get to the next game, which is... Where's our graphics, bro? The Indianapolis Colts at the New York Jets. The Colts have decided to go back to the big galoot, the big incompletion machine, Anthony Richardson. He's back at quarterback, according to Shane Steichen, for the rest of the season, which I think he said about Joe Flacco, if I'm not mistaken. This guy confusing me. But the Colts are getting 4 points against the New York Jets, I think by just essential. You need to take the points. I mean, I'm not falling for the Jets anymore. I think the Cardinals were my last straw. I bought into the Jets to win that game. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I actually am going to go with Jets to win, Colts to cover. That's going to be my pick. I think it's going to be 21-17 Jets. The reason I like the Jets to win is because I think the Colts have a beat-up offensive line, and I don't expect Richardson to find much success throwing the ball against the Jets. I think he'll be completely erratic, and I would have probably picked the Colts to win this game with Joe Flacco because I think actually against a Jets defense, it's better to have a quarterback that is going to dink and dunk and is going to take completions and hit the underneath routes. And Richardson's a guy that is just going to bomb the ball. And he's probably going to take a couple big completions and a couple explosive plays, which might help them. But I also feel like the consistency of moving the ball down the field against this scheme is not going to be there. I could see Richardson aiding the run game, though, against the Jets, which is an area where the Jets have been weak. So I do think that area will keep them in the game where Richardson could perhaps run the ball himself. Jonathan Taylor could run the ball. I think the Jets, though, have, when you think about it, they're at home. They're facing a team in the Colts that is just not great. I do have respect for the Colts defensive line. I think they've played pretty well, and I think they could pressure Aaron Rodgers a bit. But at the same time, this is a Gus Bradley defense, which Rodgers has probably faced over double digits in his career. So he should have familiarity with how to attack this team. So being that it's in New York, both these teams are bad. I'll take the Jets to win. The spread is a little bit fishy to me. I don't really understand why it is what it is. But 21-17 feels about right in this game. So I'll take Rodgers at home against Anthony Richardson on the road to win the game. But I'll take the Colts with the points because I think they've got the better coach, probably the overall better coaching staff. And I do think their defense will be able to slow down the Jets' running game. So this will be on Rodgers, but it's Rodgers against Richardson. And I still like Rodgers over Richardson despite what I've said about the Jets. So I'll take the Jets. A pretty fundamental pick right here. I don't really have a lean in terms of a best bet or anything like that. I don't like this game at all. in terms of betting. I'm just going to probably completely stay away from the Jets from now on. Next up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons at the Denver Broncos. This is probably closer to a marquee game than not. This is a big AFC versus NFC matchup. Could determine, who wins the NFC South. Could determine if the Broncos make the playoffs. Could determine a lot of different things for playoff seeding. And this is not one that I've really thought much about, but my first inclination was take the Broncos. That was my first, when I first saw the game, my first, push towards one side or the other was Denver. And so, thinking about Denver, I thought they were impressive against the Chiefs last week. I thought Bo Nix played the best game I've seen him play. I thought Cortland Sutton looked really good. I thought they were involving, Audric Estime, Vele, Reynolds, all these different guys into the offense. I thought Sean Payton. And when you really think about it, I think the difference for me in this game is Broncos are at home. Broncos have the better defense by a long shot, in my opinion. Sean Payton and Vance Joseph are far better, in my opinion, than Atlanta's coaching staff. I think Atlanta is in a spot where they could bounce back because I thought they were the better team than New Orleans last week. They outgained them. They outplayed them. They missed field goals. They're coming off a loss. There's a chance they get it going. But this is Denver and Denver. This is Vance Joseph, a guy that's really creative with his pressure packages against Kirk Cousins, who can't move. This is Pat Surtain being able to lock up Drake London on the outside. A really underrated cornerback group for Denver in general. I think they'll be able to pressure the Falcons. I think this is the best defense the Falcons have played in my opinion, quite a few weeks. The Broncos are pretty good against the run as well. And you've got an interior guy like Zach Allen who can get right into the lap of Kirk Cousins, a guy that can't really shift around and avoid pressure. That's going to be tough for him. And I think especially you think about Sean Payton and this offensive line, which has been one of the best in the NFL this year. And you think about his ways that he could be able to just scheme up against a defense that doesn't get pressure. They got 0 sacks against Derek Carr. They're one of the worst rushing the passer in football. Bo Nix should be comfortable. And Sean Payton should be able to be in his bag of mixing in run, mixing in play action, mixing in screens, keeping the Falcons on their toes. I think the defense will do good enough to be able to win this game. So that's kind of the way that I'm going. Is the Broncos to win, the Broncos to cover. But because I see these teams as basically the same, I think I have them separated by one. I think they're literally next to each other in my power rankings. And the Falcons are getting 2.5 in a game that very well could land on 2. I could see this game being 24-23 or 23-21 or 24-22 or 20 to, that type of game, right? I could see that happening. I could also see just me not being able to lay 2.5 when I think Cousins is the much better quarterback than Bo Nix. So that's also something that doesn't jive with me very well. But I do think the Broncos will win. I do think they match up fairly well, and they're at home. And I think this one's a little bit more desperate for Denver as well, considering their position in the AFC wildcard race and the Falcons' position in their own division. They swept the Bucs. This isn't a huge game for the Falcons, considering. So I would lean towards the Broncos here for sure, and I'm going to take them in my picks. Let's take a look at some outlier trends. This one's also the first game I think we've discussed that kicks off at 4:05 Eastern time. Big Al also likes the Broncos 21-16. He says Denver wins and Denver covers. Stephanie's got Denver 23-20. Big Al says I'm not up about the Falcons defense. This is the worst pass rush in the league. Okay. Falcons are 6-12 against the spread, 33% in their last 18 games as a favorite. Drake London has failed to exceed half a touchdown in 9 of his last 11 games on the road. What's anything here? Will Lutz has failed to exceed 1.5 made field goals in 4 of his last 5 games. Interesting. Bijan has exceeded 100 yards in 5 straight games on the road. This is not something I would bet, honestly, but That's an interesting trend. Broncos are 7-3 in their last 10 games at home. Denver money line is the play for here on Outlier. So Denver 7-3, their last 10 games at home, and then the other trend was Falcons are 6-12 against the spread in their last 18 games as a favorite. That might let you play. Oh wait, Atlanta's not a favorite though. This one flipped. That's why I think Outlier is showing this, because this spread flipped. Atlanta was actually favored earlier in the week, and Denver is now favored. So that's irrelevant. But 7-3 in their last 10 at home. The under has also hit in 10 of the Broncos' last 15 games as an underdog. Under 44.5. Cortland Sutton exceeded 54.5 in 4 of his last 5 at home. I could see that. Anything else? Bo Nix exceeding 208.5 passing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. I actually like that at -110. No pass rush. Bo Nix over. I never thought I'd say it, but maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe we should. All right. Let's get to the next game, which is the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are at home for this one after a game in which they only barely survived by 3 points, but they probably should have blew the doors off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I would consider to be a better team than Seattle. That being said, this is Seattle coming off a bye, and Seattle in the second matchup against San Francisco, and Seattle in a desperation spot. I would say that if Seattle loses this game, they will not make the playoffs. Period, point blank. See you later. You're done. So that being said, I think Seattle will give their best possible performance that they can. They're off a bye. San Fran is not. This is the second matchup. McDonald versus Shanahan. Now McCaffrey's in the mix here. The Niners defense, I think, is playing extremely well lately. I don't think enough people are actually looking into how well they're playing. I think they're playing very, very well. Seattle's is not. Seattle probably should have beat the Rams the last time they played. The reason they didn't is because of red zone interceptions. Seattle's O-line is trash, but they could be a little bit better this week if Lucas, I believe it is activated at right tackle. Right tackle's been a huge deficiency for them. Specifically in this game, it would be against Nick Bosa. Big concern for me. DK could be back, so Seattle could be pretty healthy for this game. Meanwhile, San Francisco is mostly healthy. They are still dealing with Moody, who was shit last week kicking the ball. Will he be good to go this week? The punter is actually probably going to be out, so they signed a punter, O'Donnell, I think, a veteran punter. He was in Green Bay, I think, previously or something. So they'll have a new punter for their league worst special teams other than Tennessee, who's historically bad. San Francisco is borderline historically bad because this is a team that has a top 5 offense and defense in DVOA, but their special teams is 31st. So the special teams have been a big problem. Actually, the game that I was at on Thursday night, Seattle had a kick return touchdown. Okay, so that happened. Seattle still failed to cover that game, by the way, because they got annihilated. Their defense got annihilated by Brock Purdy and by the Niners' run game. The way that these two teams match up is interesting because I think we know less about this one because this is only the second matchup between these two in terms of Seattle, this Seattle team and this San Francisco team. We don't know how McCaffrey may fare here. So that's a different wrinkle. Ayuk was in the last game. Ayuk's not in this game, but Ricky Pearsall's in this game. Charvarius Ward, I think, might be out again because of the death of his daughter, unfortunately. He did not play against Tampa. He did not play in the first Seattle game either, and neither did Reek Woolen. I think Reek Woolen is playing in this game, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of different changes to the lineups. I have not been a fan of Seattle pretty much all year, the way that they've been playing, the way they've been protecting the quarterback. But they're a weird team because they're extremely explosive. And I could see, just given the talent on the defense, after a bye week, I could see them coming out with a good game plan in a good game. I could see it. I haven't seen it yet this year, but I could see it. San Fran has struggled in the red zone all year. So I actually lean towards Seattle to cover. I'm going to take San Fran to win because they kind of own Seattle. I don't think they've lost to Geno Smith as the starter of the Seahawks, and that is pretty much where I'm going to lean, is because I still think the Niners will be able to run the ball with McCaffrey. I think that the Niners defense has always given Geno a lot of difficulty. I think the Niners are slept on at corner, and I think their pass rush is still pretty good. I don't think Seattle, I think the way that you have to throw the Niners off balance is through an effective screen and running game, and Seattle does neither of those things well. If you've watched teams play against San Francisco, the way they mostly move the ball is by screening and running the ball. I don't think that's the way Seattle attacks. They like to go vertical with it, which just gives more time for Nick Bosa to get to the quarterback. I don't like that matchup. So I'm going to go San Francisco to win, but Seattle to cover. This could backfire on me because San Fran is kind of due to blow a team out. Because last week they should have blew the Bucs out, but their kicker couldn't kick and they muffed a punt. So we'll see how it goes. But Seattle, you would expect to have a great performance off the bye because they desperately need it. So I'll take San Fran to win, Seattle to cover with the 6.5. Let's say 27-21 San Francisco at home. This is also a marquee game, so let's take a look at this. Is actually a low-key good game. It's a divisional game. Both teams need it. I'm really looking forward to seeing San Fran down the stretch, though, to see if they can get this thing going like previous seasons, because I still view them as a very dangerous Super Bowl team. Probably not at the level of last year, but still as a pretty competent dark horse if they can get it going. So where is my stuff, bro? Come on. Let's go. There we go. All right. So we have Geno Smith, who has failed to exceed 1.5 passing touchdowns in 7 of his last 9 games. That's at -125. I actually don't hate that, just because Geno has struggled against San Francisco in general. The Niners are 3-9 against the spread in their last 12 games at home, which would indicate to take Seattle. They have not been covering lately. So San Francisco is a team that's perhaps been overvalued by the market. Seattle, the under is hit in 8 of the Seahawks' last 11 games on the road. What else? Niners are 14-7 in their last 21 games as a favorite. Myers exceeding 6.5 kicking points 4 of his last 5 games. Debo has exceeded 54.5 receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 games. I would probably take Debo to go over in this game. He did torch the Seahawks in the first game, so I'd look for Debo to have a good game here. Purdy has failed to exceed 260.5 passing yards in 4 of his last 5 games at home. That's interesting. What else? Geno has exceeded half an interception in 5 of his last 6 games. I would also think he would throw an interception in this game. Purdy has failed to exceed 1.5 passing touchdowns in 8 straight games at home. This is actually plus 115. So if you're just playing the trend, go under 1.5. I could see McCaffrey scoring a couple touchdowns in this game. He didn't actually score last week, so that makes it even more likely, in my opinion, that McCaffrey gets in the end zone once or twice in his second game back this season. Okay. Continuing with a great week in the NFL, we've got a lot of great matchups. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 2.5. This is in Buffalo. The Bills lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. As we all know, game-tying field goal from Bass was wide, and they failed to beat the Chiefs, and the Chiefs went on to repeat as champions, the first repeat champions since the 03-04 Patriots. We didn't think it was possible. The Chiefs are now trying to be a three-peater, the first in NFL history. But the Bills have beaten the Chiefs in 3 straight regular season games. So they have lost to them in the playoffs twice, 3 times, but they have beat them 3 straight times in the regular season, including, I think, all at Arrowhead, if I'm not mistaken. This one is in Buffalo, okay? So that's a big factor because I just think this year especially, I feel like the Bills have been much better at home, especially on offense. I think the Bills are a much better home team because I think their crowd is nuts, and that plays a role. I think it's one of the better home fields in the league, and I actually think both of these teams play better at home, so that also plays a factor. Where if you flip the venue, I think it does. I think more than most games, it plays a role. It's kind of like how the Patriots and the Colts used to be, where if the game was in New England, New England would win. If the game was in Indianapolis, Indianapolis would win. That's kind of the vibe. Although the Bills, did lose in the playoffs last year. But I do feel like that does play a big factor. That's just my opinion based on the way I see these teams play when they play at home. That being said, when we dive into the football matchup, a lot is unknown about the Bills offensively in this game because of injuries. Dalton Kincaid is questionable at tight end, and also Coleman will be out of this game at wide receiver. Coleman, to me, doesn't matter as much as people think. I don't think Coleman is really that good, to be honest. I think Mac Hollins is perfectly fine taking over his role. Amari Cooper is the wild card because Amari Cooper, the way that I think about the Bills is if they have Amari Cooper on the field with Khalil Shakir, I actually think that they can beat man coverage against the Chiefs, which is something they couldn't do last year because the Chiefs essentially played a ton of man coverage. And when we looked back at last year, probably the best offense against the Chiefs late last season was this Bills offense, just because Josh Allen is stupidly good and they could run the ball on the Chiefs and they could screen on the Chiefs and they created a lot of yards after catch and Allen would make some stupid plays. And really the reason the Bills lost in the playoffs is because their defense was pathetically bad. Like, awful. One of the worst defensive performances I've seen. Like, awful, okay? And the Chiefs, I think their defense last year was probably better against the pass, but slightly worse against the run than they are right now. I think the Bills with Cooper and Shakir, regardless of Kincaid, can still throw the ball if Cooper is good to go. Shakir, because you can only put McDuffie on one of these players. And I think the other one will have a good game. I also wouldn't be surprised if James Cook had a good game as a receiver or if Dawson Knox had a good game at tight end because the Chiefs have kind of struggled against athletic tight ends this year. Knox is pretty quick and fast, so I wouldn't be surprised by that, but Kincaid would certainly help if he's good to go. Allen will also run himself, which is another factor that I think they were weak against Lamar running the ball, so I think Allen could have some success as well. Not Lamar's quickness, but I do think scrambles are a factor. On the other side of the ball, this is a weird one because the Chiefs, I feel like, have been always good against McDermott, but they've been their least effective in the regular season, and they've always been better in the playoffs against McDermott than in the regular season. They typically struggle a lot more on offense in the regular season. I don't know why. It just is what it is. On top of that, the Chiefs are just not a great offense. Like, they're not very explosive. They're very dink and dunk. And I will be intrigued to see how McDermott plays against that from a defensive standpoint. The Bills are very healthy on defense. They've actually added Quentin Jefferson to the defensive line recently. Matt Milano will be coming back soon, not for this game, but very soon. He was activated off IR. They have all their corners, all their safeties, all their defensive linemen. Von Miller is in there. The one matchup that I think really helps the Bills is their edge rush against the Chiefs' tackles. The Chiefs' tackles are terrible. I mean, the left tackle is bad. Jawan Taylor's constantly false starting, although they'll never call it. And Greg Rousseau is a dog, and Von Miller is still playing at a high level, as well as AJ Epinesa. So if you see Mahomes under duress, it will be because of those guys, and you still got to deal with Ed Oliver coming up the middle as well. That being said, I could see D-Hop and Kelsey having success moving the chains on underneath passes against zone coverage because the Bills typically like to play a lot of zone, and they will probably clog the middle of the field and force the Chiefs to go vertical. But still, Kelsey and Hopkins are so good at finding those soft spots. Juju could also be back. He's good at that as well. So Mahomes could be able to maybe dink and dunk and make some magic, but I do think on longer distances, on, second and third and long, the Bills will have great benefit because of their edge rush, which I wouldn't necessarily say is the case for the Chiefs, because the Bills' offensive line, I think, is better at tackle than it is probably on the inside, where Chris Jones might be able to make an impact, but we haven't really seen Chris Jones dominate the Bills as well as other teams. I don't think Chris Jones has ever dominated the Bills in quite the way that he has against, let's say, the Niners, for example. So this is a good game. It's a really good game. I could see either team winning. I think the Bills, they match up as good as any team, I think, in football against the Chiefs, because they have one of the quarterbacks that can outplay Mahomes. They have, I think, a good running game, good balance, and a good passing game offensively. They've got a really well-coached defense with a pretty talented and athletic front. And they also, I think the Chiefs, the one area too is the run game. I didn't really mention that, but they've struggled to run the ball lately a little bit. The last couple games against Denver, what was the game before that? They've struggled to run the ball a little bit. Who was the game before? I can't remember. But they've been overall solid running the ball. I think they'll be okay running the ball. I don't think they'll dominate the Bills running the ball, just because it feels like Hunt is really good at just getting positive yards, but he doesn't have the gas to really explode against this defense. So I lean Buffalo here. They're at home. They've won 3 straight in the regular season. I do think they're the more explosive offense, and I could see if the Bills get a lead, I could see this getting away from the Chiefs a little bit if that's the way it goes. And I just think the Bills will probably want this game a little bit more than the Chiefs. But I could see the Chiefs winning if Kincaid is out and Cooper is out. I would then flip my pick to the Chiefs. But the Chiefs are due for a loss. I mean, they should have lost to the Broncos. They should have lost like 4 or 5 times already this year. So they're probably going to lose this one. And like I've been saying for weeks, I think the Bills are really, really good this year. I think they're better than last year's Bills team. I think they're better than the year before Bills team. I think this is the best Bills team we've seen since 2021. And I think that they'll come out and they'll be gassed up and the Mafia will be ready to go. And I think Allen will put on a show. So I'm going to go Buffalo. I would be way more confident in Buffalo if Kincaid were healthy and if Coleman were healthy, but I'm still going to go with the Bills here. And especially if Matt Milano were healthy, that would help a lot against Kelsey, but that's not the case. So I'm going to take Buffalo despite the injuries at home to win. I'm not going to bet this game though. I'll probably just enjoy it, have fun with it. If you want to tease the Chiefs, everyone's going to do that. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, everybody is going to do that. So just keep that in mind. I think if one of these teams does get blown out, I think it's actually going to be the Chiefs, believe it or not, just because of the way these teams play. But this is likely going to be like a 24-20. I actually like the under here. I think it's probably going to be like a 24-20, 24-21, 23-20 type game. I actually would lean towards the under as opposed to the over in this game. I think the total is sitting at 46. So that would be the way that I would lean if I were going to bet this game. But you don't really love betting a game with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes under, right? So that I would also say that. It's not fun to do that. All right. Thank you for the dislike. Appreciate it. Let's get to Outlier on this game and see what they have to say. Must be a Chiefs fan who disliked my video, bro. What are you doing? All right. Chiefs are 6-1-1 against the spread in their last 8 games on the road. Tyler Bass has exceeded 6.5 kicking points in 8 of his last 9 games at home. That's interesting. It's a pretty good trend. Mahomes has failed to exceed 22.5 rushing yards in 6 of his last 7 games on the road. That's interesting. I feel like that's not the case. The Chiefs, the under has hit in 9 of the Chiefs' last 10 games against top 10 scoring defenses. Okay, so that helps our thought on this game. I like the under. So 9 of the last 10 games versus top 10 scoring defenses. The Bills have a good defense. I don't think it's elite. I don't think it's great, but I think it's good. Josh Allen has exceeded 234.5 passing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. I wouldn't bet this, personally. Cook has failed to exceed half a touchdown in 5 of his last 6 against top 10. Anything else I see here? Chiefs are 8-0 in their last 8 games, obviously. Butker, nothing really there. I like this one. Bass over 2.5 extra points. I do think 3 touchdowns could happen for the Bills. Maybe. It's at least worth it on the trend. 7 of the last 8 games at home. 24-20 Bills. Mark it down. 24-20 Bills. Anything else? Kelsey has exceeded 6.5 receptions in 5 of his last 6 games. I could see that happening. Allen has failed to exceed half an interception in 5 of his last 6 games at home. -120 at underdog. All right. We'll leave it there. Mahomes has exceeded 34.5 passing attempts in 4 of his last 5 games. I'll have to look. Mahomes over 237. I actually don't think he's going to throw. I think the Chiefs will lean into the run a little bit. I could see this game being played pretty slow, believe it or not. Okay. Next up, Sunday Night Football. Cincinnati Bengals at the Los Angeles Chargers. Guys, we have 100 people in the chat, only 49 likes. Gronk, spike the like button, man. Let's get those likes up. If you're enjoying this live stream, if you're enjoying my picks, if you're enjoying the insight more than my picks, Gronk, spike the like button. Help him brother out. It's free. That's how other people find this video. And if you're new, subscribe to the channel. Bengals at the Chargers. Chargers laying 1.5 at home on Sunday Night Football. And I'm just gonna internet connection or something. I don't know what happened, but hopefully people are still here. Anyways, we're gonna keep going with Bengals and Chargers. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm not sure what happened with that. But stay with me here. Internet got disconnected. I had to reconnect. Thankfully, we were able to resume this broadcast and not have to start a new one and finish these picks off. But Bengals, I like the Bengals. Okay, going back to it. The Chargers have played nobody. That's a big reason I like the Bengals. The Chargers have feasted on a weak schedule. They have played no good quarterbacks. The only quarterback I would consider to be good that they've played is Kyler Murray. Okay, and they lost that game, by the way. Every team that they've played that I would consider to be a top 15 team, they have lost to all of those teams. Okay, they lost to the Steelers. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Cardinals. Every team that I would consider to be up there. And I view the Bengals still as a top 15 team because they have a top 5 offense. They have an offense that I think will push the Chargers to score. And I don't think the Chargers will actually score in the way that people will think in this game. I think they'll try to run the ball, but I actually think the Bengals will be prepared here. I think if the Bengals get a lead, it will be putting the Chargers in an awkward position. I think the Bengals are going to be playing for their season. I think they're going to come out. They played amazing in the first half against the Ravens. I think a similar effort will be had here by the Bengals. And I just don't think the Chargers will be able to replicate the Ravens' ability to come back on the Bengals. I don't think their ability to throw the ball explosively will be there as much. I think Herbert's playing incredible. I think Harbaugh's done a great job. I simply do not believe that the Chargers are talented enough. I simply do not think they're actually as good as people think because they haven't shown it on the resume or the track record, and they don't have the skill position players. They don't have the guys on offense to keep up with the Bengals. So I think the Bengals are going to showcase that this Charger defense perhaps is a little bit overrated, and I think I'm leaning into Joe Burrow as an underdog, traditionally very good against the spread, very good overall. And I think the Bengals will win this game with their season on the line. So give me Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football. I think both these teams will make the playoffs, Sing. Both these teams will make the playoffs. Monday Night Football. Let's finish it off. Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. All right. Texans are favored by 7.5. This one's going to be relatively short and quick. I like the Texans. I like the Texans a lot. Lay the 7.5. Texans are going to hammer the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, sure, they might have some pieces back on defense. They had some pieces back last week. Does it really matter? No. Their offense sucks. They can't block. They're terrible at tackle. Will Anderson could be back. Danielle Hunter is still there. The Texans have a demon of a pass rush. They even had a demon of a pass rush against Detroit. Caused Jared Goff to throw 5 picks. Imagine what they'll do against Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. It's not going to be pretty. On the other side, Nico Collins returns, which means CJ Stroud returns. So the Texans, I think they'll also be able to run the ball pretty well, stay balanced, and create some explosives through Nico Collins, a sprinkle of Tank Dell. I think this is going to be a statement game from Houston. I think this was the same line we saw with the Eagles. The Eagles in Dallas laying 7.5. We like the Eagles minus 7.5. I don't think the Texans are playing quite as well as the Eagles, but I do think that the defense of the Texans will give the Cowboys similar issues to the Eagles, and I do think that Stroud will get back on track and win big. So, yeah, give me the Texans minus 7.5, the Texans to win. Those are our picks for week number 11. Thank you guys for sticking with me here and staying through the weirdness. Gronk spike the like button, subscribe. We'll be back with our best bets tomorrow morning live on the channel. Check them out. I think you guys have a good indication of where I'm leaning, where I'm going. If you're a member, you get them tonight. So check them out, YouTube members. Become a YouTube member. Support your boy. Patreon, also link in the description. We did great last week on Patreon. Our best bets smashed. Most of our top picks hit. So yeah, check out Patreon, $10 a month. Link in the description. That's where I give all my real bets that I make with my real money. The last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been absolutely money. So I'll see you there. Thanks for the support in the chat. Peace, guys. See you tomorrow.